अग्नीरे पुरोहितं यज्ञस्य देवमृत्विजम् होतारं रत्नधातमम्.
In the course of several thousands of years, there have been at least three considerable attempts, entirely differing from each other in their methods and results, to fix the sense of these ancient litanies. तीन प्रकार अटेम्प्ट करा जाइछि एई जो पुरातन स्क्रिप्चर्स गुडिकर अर्थ गुडिक को उजागर करिवा पई. One of these is prehistoric in time and exists only by fragments in the Brahmanas and Upanishads. But we possess in its entirety the traditional interpretation of the Indian scholar Sayana, and we have in our own day the interpretation constructed after an immense labor of comparison and conjecture by modern European scholarship. How do we interpret the Rig Veda today depends upon basically these two references, where you have Sayana's traditional interpretation and mostly you have European scholars who have given their comparative and intelligence conjecture based meanings. However, both of them present one characteristic in common: the extraordinary incoherence and poverty of sense which their results stamp upon the ancient hymns. The separate lines can be given whether naturally or by force of conjecture, a good sense or a sense that hangs together. The diction that results, if garish in style, if loaded with otiose and decorative epithets, if developing extraordinarily little of meaning in an amazing mass of gaudy figure and verbiage, can be made to run into intelligible sentences. Same as I said, that these are loaded with otiose and decorative meanings, and the kind of verbiage and the kind of figures that has been built out of the amazing mass of language that is Sanskrit uh, is quite brilliant. But when we come to read the hymns, as a whole, we seem to be in the presence of men who, unlike the early writers of other races, were incapable of coherent and natural expression or of connected thought. Actually, the men who must have written the Vedas had a special characteristic of bringing things in one unified coherence. The scholars who are interpreting these texts have this incapability of bringing out the coherence of natural expression or of connected thought. Very often, the words are the manifestation of a connected thought, and the symbolic meanings that are created in the Veda are a hidden representation of that connected thought. So, do the scholars who have translated it has used the same meanings, has used the same form of interpreting it through these connected thoughts, or the process of understanding the natural expression? Except in the briefer and simpler hymns, the language tends to be either obscure or artificial. The thoughts are either unconnected or have to be forced and bitten by the interpreter into a whole. The scholar, in dealing with his text, the scholar जे इंटरप्रेट करिया बसिची ता विषय जे श्री अरविंद कहउछंती, the scholar in dealing with his text is obliged to substitute for interpretation a process almost of fabrication. So the meaning that we are deriving out of these sacred texts or hidden mystical literature, it has often comed out to be, or has often built out to be, some sort of fabrication. We feel that he is not so much revealing the sense as hammering and forging rebellious material into some sort of shape and consistency. When we read the hymns, we find that sometimes they seem to be disconnected, they seem to be incoherent, and thus we have often this feeling that whatever is revealed out of the hidden meaning of these texts is not that pleasing, is not that convincing to our senses. And thus, this rebellious material has been willfully given some kind of consistency and some kind of shape, so that these fabricated meanings could actually formulate an idea in any impotential brain. That means instead of pushing through the consciousness and giving an endeavor to understand the hidden true meaning of the words and the scriptures, we have made ourselves dependent upon the kind of text that could have been fabricated just to derive a coherent and a consistent meaning and giving some kind of shape to the idea that could be even more mystical and more hidden and more revealing in its aspect. So this has been the primary problem when we have dealt with the texts of the Vedas. Through scholars and very often through non-persistent and inconsistent fabrication of the language. Yet these obscure and barbarous compositions have had the most splendid good fortune in all literary history. They have been the reputed source not only of some of the world's richest and profoundest religions, but of some of its subtlest metaphysical philosophies. The Vedas has proved not just for Hinduism, but many other religions have been derived out of some or other part of the main original text of this literature, that is Veda. Some of the world's richest and profoundest religions, Sri Aurobindo points it out as, and even for some of the metaphysical philosophies. In the fixed tradition of thousands of years, they have been revered as the origin and standard of all that can be held as authoritative and true in Brahmana and Upanishad, in Tantra and Purana, in the doctrines of great philosophical schools, and in the teachings of famous saints and sages. वेद को व्याख्या करिवार ए जो अधिकारटी किसी स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स सहित started actually, and following which there were the formations of these Brahmanas, these Aranyakas, these Upanishads, maybe in forms of Puranas also. But these great philosophical schools and in the teachings of their famous saints and sages, this Veda has been carried through thousands of years. This name, the Veda, which means the knowledge, has received the name for the highest spiritual truth of which the human mind is capable. A ग्रंथटिकु ए स्क्रिप्चर्स गुड़िक वेद कहबार सबुठ बड़ कारण यह भी थिला जे मनुष्यर मन जो सर्वोत्तम क्षमता को बेस करी हाईएस्ट स्पिरिचुअल ट्रुथ टी को डिस्कवर करि परिबो, सेही ज्ञानर गंताघर होछि वेद. बट if we accept the current interpretations, whether Sayanas or the modern theory, the whole of this sublime and sacred reputation is a colossal fiction. That is how our most sacred texts have been labeled as fiction writing because it narrates a story, it gives you symbols and creatures and features that has very less susceptibility towards the understanding of our materialistic senses, and thus probably we come to a conclusion that these writings of the Vedas has nothing to do with realism and a mere note of fiction. The hymns are, on the contrary, nothing more than the naive superstitious fancies of untaught and materialistic barbarians concerned only with the most external gains and enjoyments and ignorant of all but the most elementary moral notions or religious aspirations. That is how the hymns are thought to be. That these are completely interpretations that are superstitious and fanciful in nature, and that it just carries something that leads you towards most external gains and enjoyments, and you become ignorant of all but there are only the presence of some elementary moral notions or religious aspirations. That is how we have been convinced so far about the Vedas. Nor do occasional passages, quite out of harmony with their general spirit, destroy this total impression. The true foundation or starting point of the later religions and philosophies is the Upanishads, which have then to be conceived as a revolt of philosophical and speculative minds against the ritualistic materialism of the Vedas. Now we see the other part on the side of the Upanishads also, who also carry some kind of stories, but with the kind of philosophical meanings into it, with a little more precisiveness, with a little more clarity into it as interpretations of great sages and seers. We found them quite more philosophical and speculative to our mind against the ritualistic materialism of the Vedas. In Vedas, what we have interpreted through Sayana or through the European scholarly articles, that is what we have so far got speculative through the instrument of mind to understand the Vedas. But this conception, supported by misleading European parallels, really explains nothing. Such profound and ultimate thoughts, such systems of subtle and elaborate psychology as are found in the substance of the Upanishads do not spring out of a previous void. If you say that the Upanishads have sprung out of the Vedas, you cannot say that they have sprung out of just void with a kind of materialistic rituals happening in the Vedas, and the sages try to interpret it with high thoughts of schools, high thoughts of philosophical dictations into the Upanishads. The human mind in its progress marches from knowledge to knowledge, or it renews and enlarges previous knowledge that has been obscured and overlaid, or it seizes on old imperfect clues and is laid by them to new discoveries. The thought of the Upanishads supposes great origins anterior to itself. It has a background, it has an origin which is great and mystical in nature, and that is the Vedas. The thought of the Upanishads supposes great origins anterior to itself, and these in the ordinary theories are lacking. ये जो ordinary theories गुड़िक जहाँ सायानस का scriptures हो बा European parallels हो, we haven't found these kind of references to the Vedas even in the light of the Upanishads. The hypothesis invented to fill the gap that these ideas were borrowed by barbarous Aryan invaders from the civilized Dravidians is a conjecture supported only by other conjectures. It is indeed coming to be doubted whether the whole story of an Aryan invasion through the Punjab is not a myth of the philologists. So these are some of the contradictory things that has always come into the mind of the historians, that Amari Aryans huantu, ba Dravidians huantu, what have been their terms of existence, what was the period during which they got settled, or who was more civilized, who brought down the Vedas, whose interpretations are predominant on the religion of Hinduism. So these are a lot of mythical questions, a lot of historical arguments that have been taking since time and again. And what we see ahead is now in ancient Europe, the schools of intellectual philosophy were preceded by the secret doctrines of the mystics. Orphic and Eleusinian mysteries prepared the rich soil of mentality out of which sprang Pythagoras and Plato. A similar starting point is at least probable for the latter march of thought in India. Much indeed of the forms and symbols of thought which we find in the Upanishads, much of the substance of the Brahmanas, supposes a period in India in which thought took the form or the veil of secret teachings, such as those of the Greek mysteries. So it is not just our civilization which has faced this kind of revolts or this kind of misconceptions and misinterpretations, but there are other civilizations like the Greek mythological uh, mysteries or their texts have also suffered such a kind of uh, uh, projections from most of the intellectual minds of the society, who claim to have unveiled everything in the terms of pure literary and scholastic meanings. Uh, but our writings in that of the Vedas and the Upanishads uh, are